everybody, welcome once again to another edition of Retro Reviews with the Transitional Champs. I am the Cripple Threat, the third most talented man in America and former AEW superstar Ryan Niemiller. And with me, as always, is the one and only Macho Man, Gavin Eddings.
Oh, I like the Macho Man, Gavin Eddings. I like that. I've met several wrestlers, so that's my claim to fame.
Exactly, that counts.
I was once put in a headlock by Christian on local television. He was in for an interview, and he put me in a headlock before we went to commercial break. So
that's because he didn't like you, though. That was that was not scripted. He did not care for you.
It was not worked. It was a shoot. Yeah, and those are some insider terms. Perhaps the marks watching have heard of them.
There we go. That explains your ears. So, there we go. So on this edition of the Retro Review, actually, right before we get to that, I just want to point out, we won't go too in depth in it, but I crushed you in Royal Rumble predictions.
You did, because you were more optimistic than I was with some of the picks that I was making. I was like, Goldberg's going to win because everything in life is terrible. And then pleasantly, he did not beat Drew McIntyre. He lost cleanly, and then gave him the old man rub, which was nice.
Yeah, which is a move that I also hope to get one day, just the old man rub.
I like the way Goldberg said, you passed the test. Like, is 60-year-old Goldberg really the test? Is that what you have to do to make it?
I'm not going to pass it. So I guess Drew's better than me. But yeah, I think I went 5 for 6. I missed the men's Rumble. I'm not upset with Edge, but I just did not see that. That was not what I foresaw. Yeah. I didn't think he had to win to do what they're doing, but it worked for me. I was okay with it.
And your pick and my pick, AJ Styles and Daniel Bryan, respectively, they just were eliminated with like no fanfare.
Yeah, it was wet fart style. They just womp womp.
But real quick, that women's Rumble though, hot fire, good.
Yeah, I liked it. First half was a little. It felt weirdly paced. It was like rushed, and I didn't know exactly what was going on. But around when Rhea Ripley came in,
business picked up.
I was like, okay, this is going well. They gave her a good run. I was happy with the run they gave Damian Priest.
Yeah,
I'd like to point out I nailed Victoria and Carlito.
You did and by nail you mean sexually. You
sexually, yes.
You had intercourse with Carlito.
Mostly Carlito. I was very tired. Because the whole time I was doing it, he's like, if you want to be cool, that's a weird rumor to spread.
You're like, please don't spit in my face. Maybe spit in my face.
Yeah, I'm going to put on this mask just in case.
So, yeah, and Bianca Belair had an amazing star-making performance in the Rumble. I thought it may have been a little too soon, but they have been pushing her to the moon, and I am pleased with it. Seeing her and Rhea Ripley be the final two was so refreshing. I was like, I did not see this coming.
Yeah, I thought the show overall was very good, but that's also, it's a conversation for another time. But that's been my issue with WWE for the last 3 years. I feel they often do really good pay-per-views. I think more often than not, there's more positive on a pay-per-view than negative, and then it doesn't carry over to TV at all.
Yeah, it seems
TV's just what it is, but the pay-per-views are good.
It's just 24 hours it's like 16 hours of a holding pattern.
Basically,
you just gotta wait for it to get good again, and it is rough. All right,
but speaking of something that was good and rough at the same time,
mostly rough.
Yeah, mostly rough. But let's talk about our retro review. We are doing In Your House, Bad Blood. Most people don't forget that it was still officially In Your House at the time, which is weird.
And bad spelled with 2 Ds.
2 Ds
to show you how bad it is.
Yeah, because Johnny B. Bad comes and wins the world title.
It's a weird show.
Yeah, it's very weird.
This was my pick. It was a VHS I got for Christmas in '97, and I remember watching it and being like, "This is so good! It's so awesome!" It's known, of course, for the main event of the first Hell in a Cell match, but the rest of the show is a show.
Yes.
It did occur, and people were there.
Excellent. Yeah. We will get to that match by match. So Bad Blood 97 took place on October 5th, 1997 from the Kiel Center in St. Louis, Missouri. Drew 21,151 fans with 240,000 pay-per-view buys, which is, for an In Your House in 97, a little pre-Attitude Era, that is actually very impressive.
It was very impressive. And most people were tuning in to see this hellish structure, the Hell in a Cell, for the first time, because Undertaker and HBK had been feuding for a while. It started back at SummerSlam when HBK was a special guest referee at SummerSlam and hit Undertaker in the head with a chair and cost him the WWF title. They had a no contest match at Ground Zero the month before, and they needed to get it cultivated. It all had to come to fruition in Hell in a Cell.
Exactly. But before we get to that match, which everyone I think is familiar with, let's get to the rest of the card.
Yeah, it sure was. There was a weird like aura about this show because right before the show went on the air, we found out Brian Pillman had passed away. He was currently in a feud. I can't remember who was he supposed to take on that night.
Dude Love.
Okay. And he had just finished a feud with Goldust where he was like, he had Marlena as his personal assistant for like a month. And then he literally died before the show. He was found dead in his hotel room earlier that day. So there's this weird aura hovering above the show where throughout the night they kind of talk about it, and it's almost like they're doing a murder mystery to where you're like, is this a real murder? Was this a real like death that happened? Because they keep giving you updates on it, and it's very, very weird.
Yeah. It's almost like obviously in hindsight, we know that wasn't the case. It was a tragic thing. It was not drug related. I guess he had like a heart issue from birth, and it just, he had probably come back a little too soon because he had a pretty well publicized car accident and basically his ankle was destroyed. And I guess the story I've heard from like other wrestlers at the time is like he had a lot of pressure on himself. He wanted to earn his keep and like because he felt that he couldn't wrestle the way he used to. So he probably went a little harder than he should have because he was very prideful and wanted to show he was worth the risk and worth the money. And unfortunately what happened. But yeah, it is very strange because at this point, like I think they literally said he was declared dead that afternoon.
Yeah.
So like they didn't know much at the time. And since I don't want to like mention it every single time Vince brings it up, we'll just kind of cover it all now.
Yeah.
But like at first it's like just like one of the sad, like unfortunately there was too many of those during that era, but just a sad, hey, we're, unfortunately Brian Pillman has passed away. We don't have any more information. And then like a couple matches later, it's like no foul play was expected. There's issues that it could have been a drug overdose, whether it's prescription or recreational, which is a problem in our business. It was very like it felt, we talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but like I think this wasn't too long after the steroid trial where Vince got acquitted. So like it was that type of, it almost felt like that panic, like he was he was trying to get ahead of it.
Yeah, but like
almost like what happened after, Benoit, like he started changing everything with like drug policies and all this because he didn't want anyone else to come in and do it. So he was like, it was really defensive. And then like famously, like the week after, like not the next night on Raw, but the week after, they have Melanie Pillman, Brian Pillman's widow, basically crying, talking about it, which was a very unpopular decision. It was a very strange time.
It was very weird that they were like speculating. Like, why are you just word vomiting and having like, it could have been foul play, it could have been drugs. If I'm dead and you don't know what happened, don't speculate that I died of drugs. Like that is just a crappy thing to do.
Yeah, it was very uncomfortable.
Yeah. And we'll bring it up when we get to the first match. That was like a fill-in match. That was a weird way to do it too. But the first match of this night was the Legion of Doom taking on the Nation of Domination in a handicap match because the world's most dangerous man, Ken Shamrock, who is now canon by this series, one of my good friends. I am the world's most dangerous man. But so they take him on in a handicap match. And what do you think about this match, Ryan?
But it's one of those things that, like, when I was watching it, I was like, this is fine. It's standard 90s tag match kind of stuff. But then compared to everything else on the show, I was like, this is actually pretty good.
Yeah, it's one of the better matches.
Yeah, it felt like Hawk and Animal actually tried. They were kind of notorious, especially at this time, for just, like, really not giving much of a shit in the ring. It was kind of like, I'm just going to do my stuff and we're not going to work too hard and I'm going to no-sell some things and then we'll go to the finish. It is always weird. I don't know if I have this problem where like, I always forget The Rock was in the Nation of Domination.
Yeah.
It feels so different from everything else he did later. That like, oh yeah, I forget, like he's teaming with Kama Mustafa and D'Lo Brown. And they did some really good heel stuff. Like I thought it was pretty good. D'Lo Brown bumped his ass off.
Of course he did.
Yeah, it was just very interesting because you could tell that probably Shamrock was the one who was supposed to get all the heat on him because Animal sells for a really long time in this match. And neither of them, I think, that wasn't the strong suit of the Legion of Doom.
Was they selling?
They were supposed to no sell and kick ass. Like,
Yeah.
that's why it worked. And then having them kind of sell the whole time. I did laugh a lot when they did like a ref distracts where kind of they taunt Hawk in to distract the ref as the ref's pulling them in. And then D'Lo Brown holds Animal's legs up and then Rocky just punches him in the dick. I popped pretty hard on my end.
I like seeing The Rock punch people in the dick. And what's crazy about this for me is that he does the rock bottom. He wins with it. It's not even called the rock bottom yet. Like they'd have a name for it. Like
it's
this is
a move. There's a lot of what a maneuvers.
Yeah, what a maneuver! What a maneuver! So I really did like it. I did kind of wonder though, like, why is LOD in a handicap match and you don't have them win? So it just looks like they're just dumb people who come out to get their ass kicked 3-on-2.
Yeah, that's a thing. And I'm not the first person to have this thought, but it's like that's why I don't like handicap matches, because if the team that has lesser wins, it makes the team with more look like chumps. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you not win with the advantage? And then if the team with lesser loses like this, well, they were outnumbered, so of course they're gonna lose.
Yeah, of course they're gonna win.
So no one wins from it. Like, no one benefits. Like the match was fine. Like I said, it was more fun than I thought it was gonna be. It was pretty good, but I gave it 2 1/4 stars for anyone that cares.
That's not bad.
But it was decent. It was a fun little opener. It was fine. It was fine.
And you could just see that The Rock was going to be a huge star. Like, even in this match, you're like, oh yeah, he's got it.
Yeah,
he's got that thing that I like. All right, so I enjoyed it. I would probably have my star rating somewhere around there as well. All right, so the next match, and they did this weird thing where they brought up Brian Pillman's death again, and they're like, we were scrambling to find something to entertain you, and they bring out the mini wrestlers.
Yes,
which is it's what Brian would have wanted. It's what in case of my death, bring out these tiny midget wrestlers and have them dance around.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because like I thought the match was pretty fun for what it was. Like the nature of like this was that time where they were trying to get like lucha in WWF a little bit. Like earlier in the year, I believe at the Royal Rumble was the year that like Mil Mascaris and Cibernetico and they had some from AAA in the Rumble, but like they didn't mesh them into the American style at that time. So there's a lot of like the spots that make sense in Lucha Libre, like clearly choreographed misses, so they can do this. That like JR and Vince had to be like, oh, what the hell was that? Basically, like I don't know what he was going for there. This was a time like I remember there being a lot of Max Mini.
Yeah, there was so much Max Mini.
Era.
Yeah,
and it's entertaining. Like I thought this was decent. It was fun. Like obviously it's pointless. That division didn't do anything. It didn't go anywhere. It was just a nice.
Imagine what would have happened had they not had them to fill time.
Yeah, oh God. Yeah, how could they not find anyone else?
Mosaic would have not gotten on the card. And just looking back and like I was like, oh, Nova, Mosaic. Then there's like I think El Torito, maybe.
It was Tarantula.
Who was like the Kane of the minis because he was just so much bigger than everybody.
He was a monster. Yeah, the couple highlights for me, when Tarantula gorilla pressed Max Mini onto the announce table, Jerry Lawler's laugh made me laugh so hard. He was so jovial about it. And then I remember this distinctly. Someone correct me if I'm wrong on this. I believe every minis match during this era ends in a roll up. There's not a single match that doesn't end with like a roll-up pin. Like that's just what it was. That's how those matches end. So
it's like the 24/7 title picture. Every match ends in a roll-up.
Basically. Yeah. So this match was harmless. Like if it was truly like we scrambled and put a match on, I thought it was fine. Maybe a little longer than it needed to be, but I gave it 2 stars. It was harmless fun for me. Nothing.
I like to imagine they scrambled so hard, Max Mini wasn't there, and they just put children in the costume and made them go out and have a banger.
Fly around, do this.
Do it. You got this. Tarantula was a 37-year-old man. But yeah, it was a fun match, and I do kind of miss the mini division because it just kind of it would disappear shortly after this.
Yes.
All right, next up, to show you how weak the tag team division is at this time in WWE, you have
awful.
the Headbangers versus the Godwins for the WWF tag team titles. The Headbangers won the tag team titles that were vacated by Stone Cold and Dude Love the previous month at Ground Zero in a four-way match with most of these people. And this match sure is a tag team match. I was never a Godwins guy. I did not get the appeal. The lib cuck in me is offended by the Confederate flag being out.
Oh God, I was gonna say it was just like nothing but like especially yesterday too. But when I watched it all yesterday before we recorded, it was Confederate flags and mentions of Marilyn Manson, and I was like, that doesn't work well this weekend. I was like. Oh,
yeah. Of all the things you could be mentioning right now,
yeah, I didn't care for it. This match is boring. Like,
yeah,
and I didn't dislike either team. It's like the tag division wasn't like it. Basically, took until I think it was either late in the year or early 1998 where the New Age Outlaws kind of emerged.
Yeah,
I think that's when the tag team division kind of started to turn around a little bit. But like, man, they just like. I remember really liking the Headbangers back then. They do not hold up.
Yeah, I did too. I was like, they're so cool. They're wearing skirts. Then you're like, why are they wearing skirts? Was that a punk thing to do back then? It was like Vince's idea of what punk actually was. And yeah, just it wasn't very good. Uncle Cletus is a character that I did not remember at all. I vaguely
remember he's TL Hopper for anyone who doesn't remember the Tony Anthony, the dirty white boy, and he was a TL Hopper, the wrestling plumber for the last 2 years. So he was just rebranded as Uncle Cletus.
But yeah, just not a good match. It ended with
a really sloppy power bomb. Like Mosh was going for a flying something.
Yeah,
then Phineas kind of just fell backwards, and it was sort of a power bomb, and he pinned him.
And then they beat them down after the match, and the refs like, if they don't leave the ring, they're gonna get disqualified.
And then they just left. Like there was no point to that. The other thing that made me mad about this, like the match sucked. I gave it 1 star, and like I know she becomes like it's a hindsight thing, and she becomes a ridiculous human being. But Sunny is like her role in the show. She's the guest ring announcer for this. She's in a segment later that we'll talk about, and she's on the superstar line with Doc Hendricks. How wasted was she? Wasted. She should have been like a major focal point, like Sherry Martel style, because like she was clearly the hottest woman in wrestling. Like
absolutely.
I think this was the most downloaded on America Online era. Like she was like so hot, and she played a bitch so well. Like she was really easy to dislike because she was like, I'm hot and I know it, and you're all beneath me. And they have her doing ring announcing and pretending the Godwins smell and making bad jokes with Doc Hendricks on the superstar line. Just really wasted, I think, during that time.
Yeah, and I will say this though about the Godwins. The slop drop looks terrifying in retrospect. Like, how do you not just break somebody's neck open?
Yeah, especially when you're in that apparently very smelly armpit.
According to Sunny going like this before
going PU.
The tag team division. What a mess.
Yeah. So I think what's next? The video package with Austin stunning everyone.
Yeah, video package with Austin stunning everybody, which if you've seen Raw in the past 20 years, you've seen him stun everybody. It's the same video package they do before every podcast, before any 316 day. So it's fun to see that era where he keeps building up. And I remember the first time he stunned Vince, I was like, what? He's stunning the boss? Yeah. He can't do that. That's his boss. Because I was 10 and stupid.
Yeah. What was really weird about me to this, because like I remember this era because he's out with the neck injury right now. So this is not long after the botch pile driver at SummerSlam where he hurt his neck. So he's out during all of that. And this is kind of like building him up as a character where he's just like, for his own good, he's not allowed to wrestle, and he stuns JR and Commissioner Slaughter and Vince. The one thing that I didn't remember, I had like a bad memory of this. I pretty much thought for the most part that Vince being acknowledged as the boss was right after the screw job. But there's part of this where he talks like some of the stuff with him and Austin. It's no, you can't do this. I'm not allowing you to do this for your, like, I didn't realize there was as much sprinkled in at the time. I guess it was just like kind of the memory had faded a little bit and blurred, but like, oh yeah, like Vince was kind of becoming Mr. McMahon a little before I remember him becoming Mr. McMahon.
Yeah, because that promo package, he's like, you got 3 options. You can get a waiver, you can get medically cleared, or termination. And like, imagine if he had kept termination as his catchphrase instead of "you're fired."
You're terminated.
Ba, 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 ba.
Yeah, it was. I thought it was fine. I like the little package. It was a nice little refresher of just like how over he was getting. And it was also weird too, because it's like this weird dynamic of where WWF was, because we just got to see basically a couple of really cartoony early 90s matches with like these are smelly hog farmers and punk rock, and then like this is like really like Austin's a real serious guy kicking ass and he's tired. It was a really weird like in between spot before they fully transitioned into Attitude Era.
They even gave him his own commercial to sell just his shirt.
Yeah.
Like he got a promo for just his shirt selling, and you can still mail it to, I think if you send $25 to that address, they have a warehouse full of them still that they will send to you.
I've sent that check many times. I'm still waiting. Your Christmas gift's a little late because of that, but it's coming.
Good to know. All right. So next up, we do have to crown the Intercontinental Champion because Steve Austin is hurt, which is a match between Farouk versus Owen Hart. And
this is the finals of a tournament, I believe. It was an 8-person tournament.
There's an 8-person tournament. Stone Cold comes out to raise hell and drink beers, throws the belt at Commissioner Slaughter because he has to overturn it, as he has to forfeit it. I thought the match was fine, but the match was not the focal point.
On paper, when I first read the card of this, I thought that this actually could be maybe like a hidden gem because
I saw that too.
Farouk could go and Owen was great. And this match is awful, and it's not of any fault of their own. I gave it 1.5 stars, I think, because the whole thing is just an angle for Austin. So Austin comes out, like you said, he throws the belt, he's pissed. He first steals Vince's, headset and is talking, then he steals JR's, or no, I think he steals Lawler's, one of the two.
Yeah.
And then while the match is kind of happening, he goes and steals Carlos Cabrera.
He go.
Was a Hugo Savinovich. I can't remember. I think it was Carlos Cabrera. And he's talking to Tito Santana, and then he steals one of the French announcers. He's talking to Ray Rougeau. It's like this whole like Austin show. And in the match, I can't remember a single thing that happened in the match outside of the ending. It was heel anyway, which was still weird at that time. Austin eventually costs Farouk the match by hitting him with the title. Owen rolls him up. Owen wins, becomes the champion because Austin, when he comes back, he wants to beat Owen's ass, I guess.
Yeah, my thing was, they even did like a picture-in-picture with like, you've got Stone Cold over here doing his stuff, and then you've got this match going on, and that's got to suck for Farouk and Owen Hart to be working a match and not even being the focal point.
Yeah, and like, I don't necessarily mind that as a angle per se, because it makes sense like on the Owen Hart front, but like Farouk was still like he was the leader of the nation and kind of like a sort of not like a top guy, but he was in that upper echelon. He was the one that hurt Ken Shamrock earlier. Like there was a lot of stuff they could do, and then like he's just this like comedy afterthought for like Austin doing his antics. It was really weird booking to me. The match, like I said, the match is terrible of no fault of their own.
Yeah.
It was just to further the story with Austin, and it was what it was. But I think a big missed opportunity. They could have done all that and still let them also have a good match.
Yeah, but it said they're like, no, it's the Austin show, and you guys just do scoop slams for a hot minute, and we will call it a match. And then was this the part when they did the St. Louis? The old St. Louis wrestling tribute.
Oh yeah, I think I missed that. That was right before that, actually.
I actually fast forwarded it because I was like, I don't care about. I don't. And I feel bad saying that. Like, I'm sure it was a big deal, but I was like, I got 2.5 hours of this shit to get through. I don't want to slow down for St. Louis.
You missed literally nothing. Like the one comment I will make on it. So they do this segment honoring Gene Kiniski, Jack Briscoe, Dory Funk Jr., Harley Race, Terry Funk, Lou Fez, and Sam Muchnick, who was like a huge promoter in St. Louis, pretty famous guy. And it's a nice segment. They do these little like Hall of Fame type packages talking about like, he won the NWA world title and this year by beating this like, it's really nice. Like it was weird because like it was literally just a nice segment. There was nothing else to it. But like, I'm so kind of conditioned to how they would do it now, where like Randy Orton would come out and stun Harley Race or RKO somebody, like that. That's kind of what I'm just like conditioned to now. Like, you don't bring in the legends unless you're going to do some sort of angle where someone tries to humiliate them or whatever. And it was just like, hey, here's some old guys who aren't really known for WWF, but here they are. Let's applaud them. It was nice, but like, also I was like, I don't get it.
Yeah, and it goes on for like 12 minutes. I was like, this is a little bit long.
It's a long segment.
I really wish Harley Race would have come out and gotten Stone Cold's face and to tell him, I heard you talking crap about me. And we have legend versus up and comer where Harley Race goes over clean at WrestleMania in 25 seconds.
That is odd because that's kind of what it would be like. Like, that's the equivalent of what they do now.
I think this was around the time too when Cornette was coming in with like the NWA tag team champions and trying to do like this NWA invasion. So maybe this was playing the seeds for that. Maybe
I think so. Yeah, I think they were just trying to do
a nice thing.
They were getting their asses kicked by this is like the middle of the 84 weeks where WCW is crushing them week after week. So that's when they did do the NWA. Like, maybe if we work with this, something will happen there.
Yeah.
And it's very odd. But let's go to the next match.
Oh, do we have to? Do we have to go to this? It is another match in memory of Brian Pillman, where they said go out and wrestle. It is an 8-man tag between the Los Boricuas versus the Disciples of Apocalypse, which the initials are DOA, which also means Dead on Arrival. Because
I'll keep my comments on this short. It's weird that WWF had literal gang wars.
Yes,
in
that
1997.
is an actual note. Where hey, whose idea was it to have different gangs based on race fight each other?
Yeah, because that's what it was. It was white dudes versus Latinos versus the blacks, because it was like the 3 original members of the Nation. It was, because that was Farouk, Crush, and Savio Vega. And then when they all kind of went their other way, they all got their own gang of more like people who I'm saying I'm sounding like I'm racist, but that was literally the story that they did.
They went to get more of their kind.
Yeah, basically that's what it was. Like Farouk's like, you guys are out of here. I'm finding more black people. And Crush is like, oh yeah, well, I'm gonna go find some whites. And Savio is like, well, I got some browns here, and then we're all gonna fight. It's so, I understand that it wasn't quite as like ooh at the time, but it does not hold up. It feels uncomfortable to and the match sucked ass. Like, didn't help too. It wasn't even good. It sucked.
And even they were building to Survivor Series, and it was called Gang Rules, and you're like, what is this? And also, like, I knew who some of the members of DOA were. Like, I think Brian Adams was Chains, and I think
no, Brian Adams was Crush.
Was Brian Adams?
So yeah, Brian Adams is Crush.
Okay.
Chains is Underfaker. He was the fake Undertaker, and he was Brian Lee.
Brian Lee, that's
in like USWA and things like that. Yeah.
Yeah, he was in ECW for a little bit too. I was like, Brian Adams. Didn't he have a song also? Musician Brian Adams.
Yes, a Canadian pop star. Brian
and then
Adams,
I know the Harris twins, who I think are actual neo-Nazis, were Skull and 8 Ball. And then, but besides Savio Vega, I had no idea who the other most stereotypical Latino names were, as Jesus, Jose,
and
Miguel. And you're like, this is so
like, they were, I think, legit. Like, I mean, they were from like, Puerto Rico. They probably wrestled in WWC and with the clones. The only one that I kind of really knew ahead of time in any kind of way was Miguel Perez Jr. His dad was like an old, like, Vince McMahon senior era, like Toots Mond era. I think he was like one of the first tag team champions with Antonino Rocca. Yeah. Like so he's like, his dad was from like way back then. Jesus Castillo, like they were fun. It's odd because like now you figured they would find some people. Like it felt weird. Like that's an era of time. Like I'm usually pretty good at remembering who these wrestlers are. Yeah. And like they made no lasting memory on me whatsoever. No. Like it was weird.
Also, is it weird that the white people went over? Is it?
That's the way that God intended it, according to wrestling fans.
I saw the DOA storm in the Capitol a few weeks ago. I was like, keep the gimmick alive, brother. Keep it alive.
Let's pass that and go to another terrible match.
Next up, you have the
1 1/4 stars, by the way.
1
1 1/4.
Right now, Jesus has a tear going down his cheek. He's like, I worked really hard on that. All right, next up, this was a weird match too. It was the Patriot and Vader versus the Hart Foundation in a flag match. That's not a flag match. It's just a match with some flags flying.
Yeah, that's one of the first points I made, because they made this big deal at the beginning. Like a stipulation has just been added where instead of having to climb the pole to grab your country's flag, U.S. or Canada, and you could also do pinfalls, and no one ever went for the flag, like maybe once or twice. So
it became fucking dumb. It was dumb.
Yeah, so it became a really awkward tag team match where they set up flag props. Like that's all it was. Like it made it awful.
I did like the pre-match promo though, where Patriot and Vader get real into hating Canada. Like you can feel the sexual tension. They're like, we like Canada, we don't like that bullshit. And I was like, they really hate Canada.
That's one of those things too. Like I think there's a lot of hindsight, because like Vader's run in WWF, a lot of people like look back and be like, oh, they wasted him, they didn't they didn't do him right. But like he also kind of like I like Vader. Like I'm a big fan of like early 90s Vader and Japan Vader. But during this time he was lazy, and like clearly he couldn't be trusted because he dropped bullshit on live television. Like in the middle of a promo. Like he couldn't do a promo without cursing. And he did that like 3 or 4 times over the years. I don't think he could be trusted like at that point in his career. And I don't know what was going on with his life. I don't want to judge him as a human. Like I said, I like old Vader. He was exactly where he should have been in WWF because he wasn't working hard. He was like for me, it's like the early version of when Nakamura now, when he's motivated, he's fantastic.
Oh, so good.
But you can tell when he doesn't give a shit.
Yeah.
When he's going through the motions, you're like, okay, Nakamura kind of sucks. But when he's into it, he can go. Yeah, like that's kind of how Vader was.
NXT debut Nakamura against Sami Zayn, fantastic. Most of those AJ matches, like, why don't you care? Why don't you care?
What's going on? And I know he's old and his knees are beat up from his style in Japan, but like a lot of guys are old and beat up, but you can tell there's still some intensity. So it's like that's why it's frustrating with someone like Nakamura and Vader during this time. Like you would see these glimpses of like, oh shit, he can still go. He's a badass.
Yeah, he did
but it happens so infrequently that you're just like, okay, well, like I get why they can't get behind you.
Yeah. Other than the flag props. This match was just dumb. It went on for way too long. I don't know why you're putting Vader in a 20-minute epic where you're gonna go for flags, but then you end with a roll-up finish. Yeah. The Patriot had Kurt Angle's music first. I forgot about that. Yep. So that's something that
one of the things that's really funny to me, and like obviously at the time, I don't think this was as big a deal at the time. So I don't know if you follow current Del Wilkes. He's a little bit on the conservative side of things in real life. So it's really funny that like in the first 20 seconds of this match, he's using the American flag as a weapon and like choking people out with it. But thankfully he didn't kneel.
Yeah, he didn't kneel during
because that would have been very disrespectful.
My other favorite part is it looks like the Patriot did the absolute worst sharpshooter reversal I've ever seen in my entire life. Awful. Where he just somehow he had the legs crossed on his opposite side. I don't know how he did it. Like I could not try to put a sharpshooter on that poorly, but he nailed it.
Yeah, it's this whole thing is bad. I remember the Patriot being one of those like weird wrestlers that like I just kind of liked for whatever reason.
Yeah,
in the 90s, like there's an odd like. This would be like some of my favorite like wrestlers when I first started liking wrestling were like Tatanka and Hardcore Holly, like guys that aren't like known as being these like great big stars and they're kind of a little silly now, but like I was just drawn to them and the Patriot is one of them. I still think Tatanka and Hardcore Holly have some moments that hold up.
Yeah,
the Patriot, like I think it was not long after this that he suffered like whatever, I think the shoulder injury that basically made him retire. I don't like, he's one of those kind of guys that like I'm sure they would have maybe found something for him. I wonder how he would have fit in during like Attitude Era, because this is like that's like, oh, he's literally the Patriot and dressed in American flags. Like that's about as 80s and 90s as he did.
Like what would they have done with him? He could have been like he could have been like a mercenary. They could have made him like a merc where he hunts down bin Laden. He prevents 9/11.
I think overall that this got 2 stars for me. It's long, it's boring, it's sloppy.
Why are there flags? Why are there flags there?
And it's weird because like most of Bret Hart in '97 is amazing. This is kind of a dud. This is kind of just like a weird like wah wah.
But
and it's his second to last pay-per-view match.
Yeah.
Before the screw job. The screw job's the next month. So.
Yeah, everything would change in just 30 short days.
Yep.
What a match. If you have a flag match, don't worry about the flag. It don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. Just acknowledge that flags are real.
All right. And then finally, the main event, the match everybody knows this show for, is, of course, the Los Boricuas versus DOA, Hell in a Cell. They brought him back out.
They had to settle the gang war.
They bring him back out. But no, Shawn Michaels, Undertaker, first ever Hell in a Cell match. It was it's an iconic moment when you see the cell come down for the first time. So many moments in this. We didn't take notes because we know so much about it, and it holds such a place in my heart watching that VHS tape over and over again. What is your overall take on this match?
Well, for me, it's the first match that when we're doing this, that I'm officially giving my 5 stars. It still holds up really well. It feels like a modern match. This is, Michaels at his best. This is Undertaker when he was kind of, I think, really coming into his own as actually being a top-notch performer as far as like in ring work.
Yeah.
They never really gave him too many times to shine before this year. I felt he was always wrestling like King Kong Bundy and Giant Gonzalez and like all these kind of more lumbering monsters. And this is kind of the first time that he was really getting some chances to be like, oh, he can go too. Like that guy can go. The match is great. They play the roles perfectly. Shawn, this was obviously the time where he was, at his probably dickheaded-ish, if that's a word.
The worst.
Backstage wise, but like he could take an ass beating. The way he was kind of running around, like you could tell, like he looked terrified to be trapped in there because he was doing the whole, like this is the start of DX basically. And he's real cocky and smug. And then the second that cage starts coming down, and then like he's basically kind of like reaching out to Triple H in China on the
like he's in prison, like putting the hand on the glass.
Yeah, I feel this match is great. It's brutal and kind of like an old school. Like I feel a lot of these type of matches now they rely more on like high spot to high spot. Like how are we going to get to the like a lot of it's just very simple. Like it's just Michael's getting bounced around and thrown into the cage a lot and just really getting punched hard. And then he kind of counters it with like a pile driver on the ring steps, which looks brutal and great. And like,
what I really liked about this is the creativity in getting out of the cage, having them attack a cameraman and have him have to get medical attention. That is such a creative way to give them a reason to open the door and not just like, I got the key or something. So it was back when they thought of things that made sense.
Yeah, that actually like it does not affect the quality whatsoever because you get the epic shot of Michaels getting beat up on the ceiling, and then like his blood's dripping down, and they do the spot where he falls off, his head dangling on the side and falls to the table. It all looks great. If I have a small disappointment with this match, and it's such a, I'm looking for a reason to have something negative. The one thing I didn't like is like when they build this whole thing about like, for the first time ever, we have to build a structure that keeps them in so no one can escape. And in the very first time out, they escape. like it's a very small, criticism because obviously what they did with that was very cool.
Yeah.
But like, man, like the first time you build a match that no one can escape and you have them escape, now it's kind of like that's expected. Now they're not because like for a while it was okay. How do they get out of the cage? Every time they're being a Hell in a Cell, how are they getting out? How are they getting on top so they can do something? When will
they build their special up enough to crash the cage?
Exactly. That's kind of a very small nitpick.
So one thing I noticed, and this is a very nitpicky thing, but ever since I pointed out, I can't unsee it. Before Michaels gets slingshotted into the cage, you can see him blade himself.
Yes.
And I was like you can see him going for it, and you're like, we can see everything you're doing. So that always kind of takes me out a little bit. But also, I think he may have bladed again because he was on the cage and he comes down and he's bleeding more than when he went up there. Yeah. So just a lot of blood for old Shawn Michaels.
Yeah, and it was cool, and like the blood really added a ton to it. I think it was needed. I'm not somebody in general. I know a lot of people miss blood in like a really like every match should have blood. Like, it really shows how tough. I'm not one of those people. I think it should be so rare that it happens. But like, there's just some time, and I get safety wise, so it's something I will never, like, if they decide they never want blood, I get it.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna say they should put their lives at risk because I want a fake fight to look more real. That's not where it's at. But some of the times, like, just the drama added of like, oh shit, Michaels is gonna die.
Yeah.
Like, Undertaker is literally going to take him to the cemetery because he's killing him right now.
And when blood is used well, or in a feud that needs it, it adds something to it. Like, I thought Cody versus Dustin at the first Double or Nothing was so emotional, and just the blood, it just added something to it with the brothers fighting. But then I also watched like death matches where they're just like bleeding all the time, and nothing looks faker than death matches when you have a guy holding light tubes in position so he can get punched. Like, that's dumb, but blood when used sparingly and well really adds to a match. I think it really added to it here.
Exactly. Yeah. And then of course, like, you know, the big story of this is the what of, if not the best debut of all time. It's up there at least of Kane. So they've been doing a storyline where Paul Bearer had basically been telling Undertaker, you know, your brother that your
brother's alive.
He's alive. You know, the brother that when Undertaker as a boy burned down the funeral home and thought he killed his brother, but his brother's actually alive.
Yeah.
And he's pissed. And there was kind of like this thing. It's like, oh, Paul Bearer is probably just messing with them. He's playing mind games. This is the official debut of Kane, who had really terrible gimmicks before this.
Isaac Yankem
and the fake Diesel. So not exactly lighting the world on fire, but he comes in and just looks like this menacing presence. He rips the door, like they locked the door back up when they got back in, and he rips it off the hinges and just stares down the Undertaker and then just beats his ass and leaves him laying. And that didn't happen very often to the Undertaker, and people couldn't just take him down in one foul swoop. And just like such a presence, and it's a very cool moment, a very cool debut.
I've heard backstage stories, like they did an Untold on the WWE Network, where Glenn Jacobs was so worried that the door wouldn't open, and it would have just shockmastered him. Because if that door does not get ripped off, that character is gone forever.
Yep, basically, he's just it's goofy at that point. Like, you don't do anything.
And what I enjoyed too is seeing for the entire show, the turnbuckles were wrapped with his pyro. So just knowing that was going to happen, it was kind of like, oh, it was there the whole time, and these people had no idea what was going to happen, and that was kind of fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it still holds up. It feels so different than the rest of the show as well, which is why this show is really weird to watch as an entirety.
Yeah, because you have the cheesy Patriot, you've got the prison yard fighting of the gangs, and then you have this literal demon monster show up to fight the undead mortician, and it feels somehow more real than anything else that we've seen that night. Yeah,
it's so fleshed out, and like it's if you've never seen this match, and I don't know if you're nerdy enough to be watching this, you've probably nerdy enough to have seen that match, but go watch that match again. It totally holds up. It definitely
holds up. And by the way, props to Shawn Michaels for taking a brutal chair shot to the head for no reason other than to take a chair shot.
Yeah, got murdered. I don't miss those either. But.
No, I don't either. Yeah. So that is Bad Blood 97, a show that does not hold up except for the main event. So skip to that one.
Yeah, go watch the main event and then go spend time with your loved ones. Spend that extra 2 hours call your grandma. Do something nice. Her.
So what show do you think we should do next?
So it's my pick. This was your choice here. I'm not quite ready. This is going to be, since I think our background is mostly WWF/E, I'm not going to veer away from that just yet.
Okay.
So a show that I want to go back and revisit to see if it holds up is from the summer of Punk. I want to see, let's do Money in the Bank 2011.
Okay.
Yeah.
I remember
that's another one of those things I want to see if that's a one match show, because obviously everyone remembers that match. Mm-hmm. But what else is on that show? And I'm someone, we've talked about this before. I'm not as big into the allure of Punk as a lot of people are.
Yeah, I love CM Punk. So
yeah, exactly. I dug him then, but like, I don't need him back. Okay. I get mad when people chant his name. Like, if he came back, I wouldn't be upset. Like Like if Goldberg can come back, CM Punk can come back. I'm not that guy, but at this point I'm so over it, and I know a lot of other people aren't. So I kind of want to see how this feels for and me, who is kind of over it.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to go back and watch and see how that holds up.
Okay,
so,
awesome.
Money in the Bank 2011.
Money in the Bank 2011. I'm looking forward to it. And for my next pick, we're going to watch some obscure FMW shows, which you'll have to find on a VHS tape and find an old VCR.
Nice. We're going to have to do some tape trading.
I hope you like Hayabusa versus Mr. Pogo.
I do. I want to get some Tarzan Godo going. Let's do this.
All right. Plug your stuff, Mr. Cripple Threat.
At Cripple Threat 8 on all the things. Please give us a like. Give us a comment, subscribe. It all helps. If you have any wrestling nerd friends, please let them know we are a blossoming brand new channel.
We do exist. We are a thing.
And I'm having a good time. And I would like this to actually be something where maybe one day I could buy us some Chinese food with the money.
I would like that too.
That would be nice.
I'm just trying to get on the Jericho cruise. That's all I'm
exactly. Well, maybe you can be my +1. You can hang out in my suitcase.
Yes, I would love that more than anything. Just stay in there the whole time with Marco Stunt, who I assume you'll also have in there.
Yes, which is weird because he has his own room. But Marco and I are actually buddies, so I'm sure we'll hang out. So.
I met Marco at a GCW show too, and he was very nice. So
yeah, he was just a fan from AGT. It was very weird. When I started doing the stuff with Jericho, he just reached out to me and was like, "Hey, I'm really big fan of your stuff." So it's just like kind of a cool thing. I'm buddies with Marco Stunt now.
How fun! I'm not buddies with Marco Stunt, but if you want to be buddies with me on social media, you can at Gavin Eddings on Twitter or on Instagram. Also have a horror YouTube channel called Gavin Loves Horror, which I often reference wrestling on. So if you like wrestling references in horror movie settings, there you go. I need to watch the Goldberg horror movie, The Santa Sleigh. That's the crossover we need.
There it is. Perfect. That actually could be a future review. Maybe we do some crossover stuff of some outside. We can watch Santa with muscles. We can watch wrestlers in other media.
I might bring you onto my channel for that one.
Nice.
All right. Well, until next time, I'm Gavin.
I'm Ryan, and we are the Transitional Champs. See you later, everybody.